Good morning. Welcome to the King Institute for Faith and Culture. Delighted to have you here this morning for a special additional session with one of our own, Andrew Jebasingh, who visits us from Nashville and who graduated from this institution. We have a couple of quick announcements, and then I'm going to ask Bill to introduce our speaker. For today, if you want to spend some time with Andrew, we plan to be in the Tadlock House for coffee after the talk. And that may be a little delayed, but we may be over there for a while. And then we'll go to lunch around 11:15. If you want to join us, please feel free for either one of those. This afternoon at 4:45, Andrew will do the science seminar, which today will be in the boardroom in the Student Center complex as opposed to in Klein. We are supposed to have an event next week that has been postponed. Artist Bruce Herman was supposed to be with us next Monday, but he tore all the ligaments in his shoulder hiking, and so he's going to come back to us in the spring. So we'll have a short break in early October. We're going to welcome another alumnus back, Nick Stella, who has founded the energy drink Rise, and he'll be here for a talk in early October. But for now, I'm going to hand it over to Bill Linderman to introduce our speaker.
Good morning. One of the things that I love about being a professor is the opportunity to work with students and to get to know them, and then we get to watch them go out into the world and do all of these amazing things. I can think of a long list of star students that I've had the privilege of teaching throughout the years, and it's always fun to reconnect with them and hear about their life experiences. It also seems like they should all know each other just based on common experiences that they've had at King, but of course that isn't true. Well, one of the standout students from my early years at King is today's speaker, Andrew Jebasingh. Andrew was a student when I started teaching at King in the fall of 1999. I told that to my wife recently, and she said, "Was it really that long ago?" And yes, it was really that long ago. So you are getting old, Andrew. I remember Andrew as a student for his cheerfulness and enthusiasm. He was always hardworking and inquisitive and eager to learn. And I remember that he was incredibly tech savvy. He was always way ahead of the curve on the latest technology. Andrew grew up in New Delhi, India, and graduated from King in 2002 with a degree in math and computer science. He then earned a master's degree in computer science from Vanderbilt. He met his wife, Emily, at King, and they are the proud parents of 4 boys. Andrew has worked with several startup companies, and I think that's what he's going to talk to us about this morning. He also worked at Amazon for 5 years, and he is currently working at Meta as leading a software team on Messenger. I've only seen Andrew a few times since he graduated, but we got to have dinner last night, and it was like no time had passed at all. It was like seeing an old friend after many years have passed. I also got to drive his Tesla, and so that was a lot of fun. Andrew, I want you to know that I'm very proud of you for your professional accomplishments. But even more than that, I'm impressed that you still seem to have those qualities that I admired about you when you were a student at King. That you are a person of deep faith, that you enjoy life and help to make life more enjoyable for the people around you, and that you work hard to make the most of the talents and opportunities that you have been given. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here today, and I look forward to hearing what you have to share with us. So everyone, please join me in welcoming King graduate Andrew Jebasingh.
All right, let's see if this works, I guess. Can you all hear me okay? Okay, awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me. This place honestly brings a lot of memories back, so it's good to be back. And I know all of you are probably, or most of you, I would say, the folks kind of in the back, the students, tired of hearing folks saying, "Oh, it brings back memories, you know, it's back in my day." But don't worry, 20 years from now, you'll be saying the same thing. So mark my words. So faith and culture. I thought in the first section, I kind of talk a little bit about Amazon and Meta, Facebook, et cetera, a little bit, because Some of you are curious about how those work. Okay, so who can tell me what this number represents? Come on, this is going to be an interactive session. So I need, what's that? Population, that's right. So that's the population of the world. All right, and then who can tell me what this number represents? All right, throw some guesses out there, people. All right, so we're going to be here for a long time. Any guesses? What's that? Yep, almost there. So that's actually specifically the monthly average, the monthly users for Facebook or Meta. So across Instagram, Facebook, Messenger, WhatsApp, etc. So yeah, it's a pretty large percentage of the population of the planet, right? Which is crazy. And one thing I'll kind of put a pin on and remind you all is this started, anyone guess where? In a dorm room. All right, so hold on to the thought. We'll come to that later. All right, now this number, I'm going to tell you all, this is you, okay? There's only one of you in the whole planet. Even if you're identical twins, your identical twin is not going to have the same retinal signature, is not going to have the same fingerprint. So literally, there is only one of you that ever existed and that ever will exist. All right, so you can kind of keep that in mind as well. All right, so a little bit about me. That's actually a recent picture. I got to go in my last trip to California, check out the Instagram office. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I'll pose and I'll do an Insta in front of Insta. But so, as you heard, did a couple of startup-y things and worked at Amazon for a few years. So I'll show you all some pictures of how some of these companies work and a little bit of what happens. But here's overall, just by my age, a little bit about, a little kind of brief snapshot. So believe it or not, when I was 16 years old, I was kind of struggling between deciding if I wanted to major in computer science or English when I was in high school, because I kind of liked both. And I wound up flipping over to computer science. And then, math and computer science, but then let's put a pin on that because I want to mention something about that later as well. 25 and I did my first startup, and I think I was 27 when I went to it full time, so I was kind of doing it on the side for a while. And then 34 when I started at Amazon. All right, any guesses what this place is? Yeah, so that's a fulfillment center at Amazon, yep. So not the office, but that's actually, those are all conveyor belts and things like that in the back, and that's a fulfillment center. So when is the last time anyone here ordered something on Amazon? This morning, yeah, there you go, that's right. So do y'all notice when it says, hey, order in the next 2 hours and get it today or get it tomorrow and all that? So there's a newish algorithm that went live worldwide in 2017, and that's still in use right now because the first algorithm was from, the company founded until 2017, and then we kind of changed it up. And my team built that algorithm. So whenever you see that date on when you're going to get your stuff and your guaranteed delivery date, et cetera, that was built by my team. And we added a few pieces over there that sometimes frustrate people. Because you're like, why am I ordering this on Monday and not getting it until Thursday? But there's, I'll tell you a fun little story about that as well in a minute. So when you order something and when you press that button, usually what winds up happening is, there's a lot of stuff that happens even before you press that button. When you go to the page, the human attention span, if anything takes longer than about 800 milliseconds, you notice it. And so you want something to be up on the screen very, very quickly. You want it to load on your app very, very quickly. And so there are these kind of like SLAs or service level agreements or contracts between services inside of Amazon. And one of the things is nothing can take more, like the P95 is what we call it. So for 95% of the requests, nothing can take more than 100 milliseconds. That's the budget that you work with. And so back when I was there, 2017, et cetera, there were about 4,500 servers that were specifically designated for calculating how long something would take to reach you. So when you go to that page, first you got to find out what are you looking at, where are you located, what is the closest fulfillment center to you. that has the item in stock. What is the cutoff time that the last truck leaves the fulfillment center? And then how soon do we think then, using whatever a variety of different shipment methods, air or ground, based on whether this thing has got batteries, lithium-ion batteries that can go boom or not, and then figure that all out to give you your guaranteed or your delivery date, and do all that within 100 milliseconds. So that's the time budget. So that's a little bit about Amazon. And then I have another picture here. So any guesses what those are? I know they're really tiny looking, and they're very squinty. You had to kind of squint your eyes to see it. Those are shoe boxes. So anyone ordered stuff on Zappos? All right. So that's actually a Zappos fulfillment center. And you see there are actually multiple levels of these cages with shoes in them. And so whenever someone has to fulfill an order, they actually stand at the bottom, and this whole giant machine like whirls around and brings down the cage that has the shoe that you ordered, and then the person has to pick it and and put it on a conveyor belt, and then packages it up and sends it to you. So that's what the Zappos fulfillment center looks like, and that's what happens when you order your shoes. All right. So let's switch over to Meta a little bit. This is actually one of the buildings at Meta, and Building 22. It's one of the newer ones. And I got a couple of pictures. This is what the inside of it looks like. So Amazon is all about frugality, and Meta is not all about frugality. So it's like, it's kind of mind-boggling to me, when I see the stark contrast and stuff. And at Science Seminar, I'll show you some pictures of the Amazon office on the inside, what it looks like. But that's part of my team. As you can see, they love what they do. No, I actually had them pose for me like that. I thought it was kind of funny. So that's some of the engineers that work on my team on Messenger. Do we have anyone from the cafeteria here? Food services? No? Okay. All right, good. I can say this then. So that's one of the cafeterias at Meta. And what really surprised me was that everyone really is driven to make sure that they do their best at whatever they do. So this was at around 10:30 or so, and these are chefs at the cafeteria having a meeting with samples of what they're going to make for lunch, and then kind of discussing it. And then they kind of like tweak the stuff. They're like, oh, you know what, the marshmallows are not properly toasted, so we probably need to let them bake for another 30 seconds before we pull them out. So stuff like that before serving it. And the food is always very delicious. And you get breakfast, lunch, and dinner over there for free. So whenever you go to the office, one of the perks. In fact, when COVID happened, one of the problems that managers had was that a lot of students go straight out of college into and work at Meta. And at that point, you had laundry done for you, you had food served for you, and all this stuff, which, by the way, is the same thing that happens at home, right? Because mom and dad kind of take care of those things. So when the employees, these young folks were supposed to stay at home, one of the big problems was, well, how do I get breakfast? So how do I do my laundry? So these are skills that had to be suddenly learned, which I thought was kind of amusing. Okay, and then a couple more things, then I'll switch over to some other interesting things about faith, and then later on, a suggestion I have for you all. Okay, so this is one of the little walking trails and like a park at Meta. So you have like this mile-long loop that goes around, and you get a workout and stuff like that. And that is actually on the roof of that building. Oop, I lost it. But let me see. Oh, there we go. So that is at the roof of that building. So, which blew my mind. It's like, okay, you have like this huge park and stuff, like walking trail and everything, that is actually on top of a building. So if you can kind of squint your eyes, you can see one of the trees over there kind of at the tail end. So it's, I was just thinking in my mind, okay, so wonder what the conversation went like, where Zuckerberg's like, oh, I'd like to have a park, like this little walking trail and all this fun stuff. And the architect's like, okay. And they come up with something. They're like, yeah, how does this look? Oh, that looks great. Let's just put it on the roof of the building. So, all right. Now, switching over. How many of you all believe that God is real? Okay. Most hands. Good. Expect that at King, I would think. So, how many of you all believe that God is active? Okay. Most hands, all right, good. So there are a few things that happened in my life that I'll touch on a little bit. So basically, when I was 16, another thing that happened was I failed math really badly. I think I got like 11 out of 100 in my final. And in class at one time, my teacher had this calculus problem on the board, and she asked me to stand up and solve it. This class of like 20 kids. And I literally had no idea where to start. I was just completely lost. So she comes over to me and in front of the whole class. She says, son, you don't have an aptitude for math. You can never do math, so just stop trying. And at that point, I felt like the world's greatest idiot, of course, and super embarrassed and just, and all that. But then in 11th grade, after I failed, they kind of told me that I couldn't do math in 12th grade. I can either fail and redo 11th grade and retake math and physics, because I failed both of them actually, or I could go on to 12th grade and not take those two subjects and still graduate with my class. So I was like, yeah, I don't want to fail and redo 11th grade, so let me just go on to 12th and not do math and physics. But then what I did, James 1:5 says, any one of you that lacks wisdom, ask God and he'll give it. That's my paraphrase a little bit. And so I actually printed that out and stuck it on my door, and every day for the next like 2 years, or the next year actually, 12th grade, I just begged that God would give me wisdom. And every time I walked out of my door in my bedroom, I would just pray, God, just give me wisdom. And then, I come to King, and I double major in math and computer science, and I do physics for my science elective. So he did, And so that was one of the moments as well when I saw that God is active, and he does listen. And then the other thing is, that point of embarrassment that I had when I was 16, I am thankful for and happy about now, because here I am encouraging you about it as well, okay? So one of the things that I want you all to kind of think about as well is life is hard. You are going to have challenges. You are going to have adversity, okay? That is just a fact of life. But when that happens, just think about two things, right? One, God is going to be standing right there with you. And the second is down the road, he might give you the ability to use it for his glory, okay? Which is what our lives are about anyways, to glorify God, right? So grad school, I went to my second choice, believe it or not. Vanderbilt was my second choice, and UT was my first choice, because I had just started dating Emily, who was still a student at King, my senior year, her freshman year, et cetera, et cetera. But then because of a technicality, I did not get in, I got in, but I didn't get any scholarships at UT. But Vanderbilt gave me a scholarship. So then I was kind of like forced to go there, even though that was my second choice. But again, that worked out. And then one thing I'll tell you all over here is a little mini life hack that I do. Whenever I have like a big decision that I need to make on grad school or job or whatever, this is like my cheat code. So I pray and I tell God, Lord, you know that I'm kind of thick-headed, so please just hit me on the side of the head with a 2x4 to tell me what you want me to do. And could we do that by just shut the doors that you do not want me to pass through, and just open the one door that you want me to go through? And he's always done it. Like every single major decision. After grad school, I applied at 4 places. My wife's family is from Johnson City, so I was applying for 3 places in Johnson City. And then I applied at this one place in Atlanta, Deloitte Consulting, which some of you may or may not heard of. Literally all those 3 places turned me down, and Deloitte was the only place that gave me an offer. And Deloitte's offer was, I would think, was better than everyone else's. So it's things like that, where he just kind of helped lead me into where I needed to go. And then finally, the biggest Mission Impossible kind of thing in my mind was when my dad died. That happened when I was 33, and I believed in God, and I believe, God is real and all that. But then I also felt like a poser. I felt like I was just pretending to do the right things and pretending to be a Christian. And I was also really sad because both of my grandfathers passed away before I was born, so I never got to see them. And Henry, our third born, did not get to see my dad. And Emily's dad had passed away 9 months after we got married. So now Henry and then George, our fourth born, neither of them have got to see their grandfathers. But Henry specifically, George wasn't born yet. So I was really upset that Henry didn't get to see my dad. I felt like I was being a poser. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just done with this. I'm just done with claiming to be a Christian, because I just feel like I'm not. And I'm just gonna turn my back on God, and I'm just gonna do what I want. And that lasted about 30 minutes, because I got on the plane, and I was going to the funeral. So this was on my flight from Munich to Delhi. And once I got in, I really just felt strongly that I should read the Bible. Now think about how strange that is. Like, I literally just decided I'm done with God. And then 30 minutes later, I feel this strong urge to read the Bible. So I thought to myself, well, I didn't bring a Bible, so I can't read it. And then I hear this voice saying, but you have your iPad, and you got the Bible app on it. So then I got my iPad, and I turned it on. I was like 1 Corinthians or something like that, and one of Paul's letters. And the next thing really just changed me for the rest of my life. I read it for 7 hours. Okay, how many of y'all have read the Bible for more than an hour? Okay, how many of y'all have read it for 7 hours? I had never done that either, right? Like, who does that? Who does that? Like, you're supposed to read one chapter, right? That's the allocation, and then you're done. But I had never done that before. But I did it and read it for 7 hours. So it was like, okay, actually, Shelley asked me this morning, so what'd you read? And I was like, the New Testament. So I kind of read almost all of the New Testament in that period of time by the time we touched down. And I tell you, it is a powerful thing. And I would strongly encourage anyone to do it. I would say, instead of spending 7 hours on social media, we can afford the loss of daily active users. Spend 7 hours, just reading the Bible, and starting at John, I would recommend, and just see how it goes. Or at least an hour, or 2 hours, and see how it goes. So that kind of changed me, and I kind of actually snapped back a complete 180 on what I had decided for myself just 30 minutes prior, right? Crazy. Okay, so I want to say a couple things about the Bible. So the Bible, we know, is, what is the written word of God. And the Bible has a lot of value, right? And then I'm going to talk about one more thing right after this, but then how many of y'all know about probability? Okay, all right. So look around and kind of guess how many people are in this building right now. How many would you say? Throw out some numbers. 100? Okay, all right. So one of the Bibles in the pews actually has an envelope with $60 in it. All right? So what are the odds that the Bible in front of you has the envelope with $60? 1 in 100, right? All right, I see some enterprising students are already reaching and looking. I see someone found it. All right, why don't you stand up? All right, so she got the envelope. There we go. So, yeah, you missed it. So $60 is actually a small representation of the value in opening your Bible, okay? So I would encourage you all to do that. And then also I want you to kind of put a pin on probability theory for a second. All right. Okay, how's the talk going so far? Anyone awake or anyone asleep yet? No? All right, good. So one more thing I kind of want to talk about. This is something that was near and dear to me when I was at King as well. And when I came here, it was all about, of course, Big Bang took a few million years, and then we evolved, and here we are. But then my sophomore year, I started kind of thinking about it. And I asked my parents about it. They were both in Christian ministry. And they were both just shrugged their shoulders and were like, I don't know, whatever. We're here, aren't we? So then I started thinking about it more. And then I started looking at it from a probability perspective of every single atomic event happening, right? And so just looking at evolution, single cell to you, right? As I said, there's only one of you, right? Extremely unique. I used ChatGPT recently to kind of like work out the math on this a little bit, making some assumptions and stuff like that. And according to ChatGPT and me with my prodding and asking the right questions, because it was annoying at first trying to get it to give me the answers I wanted. Numbers will confess to anything if you torture them long enough. But the probability of us having, been here from primordial soup is 1 in 10 to the 38th power. So right now, the probability that she got that envelope was 1 in 10 to the second power, right? So the probability that we all evolved is 1 in 10 to the 38th power, which is, you might as well win the lottery multiple times in sequence, or a couple of times in sequence, kind of a thing, right? That's the odds are extremely low. But then the thing is, I would say question everything, right? You believe in evolution, just question it, dig into it. You believe in creation, question that, okay, and dig into that. But then instead of just making assumptions and saying, okay, this is what I'm told, so I'm assuming it's true, just question it. For example, one thing I've questioned is how do we know that this rock is 5 billion years old? And I say, oh, carbon dating or atomic decay of uranium. It's like, okay, so how long have you measured the uranium to determine what its atomic decay rate is? Well, at the most, 50 years. So you look at it for 50 years, and then we extrapolate from that, assuming that it's going to be linear and constant and there are no exponential drop-offs, and extrapolate to 5 billion years. Who does that? Well, some people do. So the margin of error would be very high, is all I'm trying to say. Okay, so coming to you. So how many of y'all know exactly what you're going to do when you graduate from King? Okay, we got 1, 2. Oh, look at that. Okay, at least looks like 10, 15%. Okay, so let me ask y'all this. How many of y'all are going into, let's see, Christian ministry? Okay. How many of y'all are going into the arts? Okay. Sciences? Okay. Engineering? Okay, a few. All right. So how can you kind of determine what you're going to do when you graduate while you're in college and get high confidence that this is something that you would like to do potentially? And then another thing is, how can you immediately bring value to your employer, right? So when you go and you get a job, a lot of us are like, oh, I got my degree, so I deserve making, whatever amount of money that I wind up making. But actually we don't, and the reason you make the money is because you're providing value to your employer, right? And whoever brings you in. One of the big things that I've seen in, 20 years of working in managing people is that the biggest challenge I see is there are non-zero, actually a pretty high number of people who come out of college and then they struggle in a job for one primary reason. And that reason is when you're in school, let me ask you this. Let's say that you get a D in calculus. Who suffers? Who suffers if you get a D in calculus? You, right? Okay, look at the person next to you. All right, do they suffer? Because you got a D? No, they don't, right? So the consequences of your actions, either positive or negative, rest on you, okay? All right, now let me ask you this, and tell you this. So when I was at Amazon, one of the guys on my team, the way we were kind of trying to adjust and see how we can make the company money was by seeing when can we make the cutoff times. So can we restrict air shipments on a particular date, or say that we're going to cut off air shipments after 2 o'clock in the afternoon, et cetera, and then force it to go by ground, so that'll extend that delivery date by a day, but then that'll wind up saving the company money because air shipments are more expensive than ground shipments. And by the way, on average, back in the time, it costs about $2.23 to ship the first item, and then any incremental item that you buy would cost an extra 2 cents. So it's extremely inexpensive if you buy 2 for shipments. They average out down. So anyway, he had to make an update to a config file that would basically restrict air shipments for a particular, just a period of time during the day. But he fat-fingered it, and he kind of goofed up on accident, and he cut off all air shipments on Sunday, no air shipments. So then all of a sudden, if you bought something that Sunday, you weren't going to get it until Wednesday. But normally you should have gotten it on Monday or Tuesday, right? So we found out the next week after it already happened, we're freaking out, like, oh, shoot, All right, so then every time you have an issue or something like this happens at Amazon, there's actually a really good process that they follow, which Facebook does the same thing, which I love. It's blame the process, not the person, okay? And so there's this thing called a correction of errors, or a COE, that we had to write up to try to figure out what the impact was, what happened, and all these things. We looked at the order rate to see if there's a loss of orders. We found out that, nope, the order rate actually looked the same. So no one decided not to buy something because they got it on Wednesday instead of Tuesday. And then we looked at how much money we saved, and we saved $12 million. So I was like, huh. So that little mistake wound up saving the company $12 million with zero impact. But we still had to write a correction of errors and say how we're not going to do that again. But so it's kind of interesting. All right, so coming back a little bit, I want you to think about actually I forgot to tie my point in. So that person, when the guy on my team made that mistake, it wound up impacting a lot of people, millions of people, right? Because there are millions of people who ordered on Amazon, and they were all impacted. It affected our team. It affected me. I had to help write that correction of errors. So now that mistake that he made, that one was a beneficial one, but there are negative mistakes that people make. It actually impacts other people as well. So this is the main thing that, the mind shift change that needs to happen when you go on to the workforce, where you realize that the consequences of your actions, positive or negative, don't just sit on you, it actually impacts other people as well. So if you remembered who was sitting to your left or right, it would impact that person, right? It does not just impact you. All right, so as I said at the beginning, there's only one of you, right? And the one of you, I mean, we hear about environmental, like genetic, and there are all these kind of nuances that goes to making you. So yeah, so your history, what your passion, your mission, etc. Right? So how can you kind of like do a trial balloon? How can you kind of figure out, okay, what is it that I really want to do or am passionate about, etc. But before we get there, I want to talk about a couple of other things tying into like the little, creation evolution thing for a moment, and also about missions. So these two guys, anyone recognize who they are? Well, I got the names of it. Well, you know what? There we go. Now it works. All right. So we got Elon. We got Mark. How many of you all thought that Mark Zuckerberg was a creationist? Zero? Okay. And did you also know that he is a literal 6-day creationist? Yeah, surprising, right? Yeah, I was shocked too. So he does these things once a week where it's basically like an Ask Me Anything. Anyone in the company can ask questions, and then others can upvote them, and then the top 5 questions get answered for the whole company. So one of those times, someone had asked him, what are your favorite books? And he had to say, well, first one is Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, because she's my COO, and I like her book. Number 2, I like sci-fi books in general. And then he goes, okay, well, let me see how deep do I want to go. Well, number 3 is the Bible. And he said, well, I'm actually Jewish, so not the New Testament for me, just the Old Testament. But the thing that really stands out to me is Genesis and how God created man in his image. And when you look at the text, you see that what does it mean to be created in God's image? Well, God created this, God created that, God created that. So it means that we want to create. And so his mission is now, he wants to make tools and systems that help other people create, which is one of the reasons why he's still, like, okay, let's create these creator tools and stuff like that, right? That's his thing. Well, Elon. So Elon is a simulationist. How many of y'all have heard the term simulationist? Okay, yeah, we got one. All right, do you want to describe it? Exactly. There you go. You ever heard that? So that we live in a simulation, that this is all a simulation, right? That's what Elon thinks. Which also implies that there's someone that made the simulation, right? So that's Elon's thing. But then Elon's mission is that it goes back to that book, Rare Earth, that I read in my sophomore year over here, that got me to also think about things in terms of probabilities. Elon's thing is the light of human consciousness is rare. It is incredibly rare, and so it needs to be protected. And that's why his main thing is going to Mars, just to kind of make sure that we have redundancy. That's his main reason for going to Mars, right? Now, you think of things in terms of redundancy, you might not, think of it as, well, let me ask you all this. How many of y'all had a car that broke down? Okay? And how many of y'all had a car that broke down when you really needed to go somewhere? Right? Okay, so let's say you had a redundant car. You had a second car just sitting around. Then would it have been a problem? No, right? So that's how you think of redundancy. Well, if I have two cars, then if one breaks down, that's okay. I can take the other, right? So what about, okay, if we kind of nuke each other and we destroy Earth? Well, I guess if you had another planet, then there's redundancy. So that's his way of thinking, right? It sounds crazy to all of us, but it's actually making it happen. All right. So I want to kind of tie it back into the concept of you, right? This is kind of like a graph that I use. I'm not sure. It's kind of a little tiny, some of those icons that I try to use. But when you're thinking about what you want to do for your career, your job, your vocation, et cetera, right? And this is kind of like a thing that I stumbled upon for myself. And then, because I wasn't smart enough to actually think about it this way. But then once I stumbled upon it, I realized this is probably a good rubric. So the green arrow is what you love, okay, on the axis. And then the red arrow is what makes you money. And so you can think of it as, all right, so these are the different things I love to do. Hey, one of the things I love to do is play Factorio, this fun video game. But then if I play it all the time, I'm really kind of not making money, right? So my income generation capability goes down to 0. But my fun factor goes up a lot. But then, you know, maybe there's something that I know for sure is going to make me a lot of money, but I'm going to absolutely hate it, right? So what lies at that intersection? What is something at the intersection of something that, you know, you can make a decent income and stuff, but something that you're also passionate about? And the reason I think this is important is because if you are passionate about what you are doing, right, for a job, then when you go to work every day, it will feel as if you're going on vacation. Sounds crazy, but it's true, okay? Because you are so excited about going and doing this thing that you love to do. Okay, so give me some examples. What are things you love to do? Sports? Okay, so what sport in particular? What's that? Wrestling. Awesome, thank you. So you love wrestling, right? Okay, let's say that you got to wrestle when you go to work, whenever you want, right? Like, let's keep it reasonable, because I know it's physically taxing and all that as well. But that your job was wrestling, teaching others how to wrestle, you know, everything just completely wrestling involved, right? Or managing a wrestling team, like whatever it is, but it's all about wrestling. Then would you have fun when you go to work? You would, right? Do you wrestle for fun right now? Right? So there you go. So if you wrestle for fun right now, and you go to work and you're wrestling for fun there, then you're having fun, okay? And when you're doing something and having fun while you're doing it, that actually puts you at the top end of the bell curve in that field at that company, and you will be disproportionately rewarded for it. Does that make sense? And so if you're actually doing something that you enjoy doing, you will actually do it better than others that are there that are not enjoying it. And so then that will be called out, that will be seen, and you will be able to, therefore, outperform your peers. So you can think of it in those terms, all right? What is the intersection of something that you have fun doing that also makes you money? All right. So as I was saying, the ideal state is when you go to work, you feel like you're going on vacation. Now, I made a mistake when I was explaining this to my wife, and so make sure you all don't make the same mistake I did, because I added a line and said, and when I go on vacation, I feel like I'm going to work. So, so don't say that. All right. So what's the life hack? We got 5 minutes, and we can wrap it up. How can you kind of do a trial balloon, right? How can you figure out in a low-risk way what it is that you really enjoy doing? All right. You can do internships, right? That's one way of doing it. You can work in different places. You can try different things. But then it's difficult to get an internship, right? I mean, how many of y'all applied at an internship and didn't get it? Okay, how many of y'all applied at an internship? Okay, come on, people. Apply at more internships. All right. And then, but how can you do that? Do a startup. All right, how many of y'all have thought, hey, I want to do a startup while I'm at King? Okay, awesome. Because I want to put the seed in your head, okay? Because doing and starting a startup Is it hard or easy? How many of y'all think it's hard? Okay, how many of y'all think it's easy? Okay, the answer is it's actually very easy. It is super easy to start a startup. How many of y'all made a lemonade stand as a kid or any point in time in your life? Okay, you got, yeah, people, you think of it as a startup, right? Hey, I've got this little business. I'm like, trying to sell lemonade and hustle on the side to make a few bucks. So starting something is actually not that hard. It's easy to start. What's hard is succeeding at it, right? And making it actually work and changing the world, if you will, right? That's what's hard. Starting is not hard. Winning is hard, okay? But here's the hack, right? Let's do like a SWOT analysis. Anybody know what a SWOT analysis is? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So let's look at that, right? So the strength is if you try to do a startup right now while you're king, hey, you got lots of time, you got low expenses. You might think that king is expensive, but honestly, compared to life, it's not. So you have low expenses, access to talent. Look around you. Do you feel like there are people around you that are smart, that can help you with something, that know stuff that you don't? So yeah, you got your professors, right? You got access to talent. You got mentorship, all these things. You kind of know what works and what doesn't for your age demographic, right? And then but there are some. The biggest weakness is little experience. How many of y'all have done a startup before? Right? So I did see one hand. I thought maybe. So lack of experience. And then maybe the focus thing about, okay, I got to do my homework, I got to do my schoolwork, I got to make sure I get a good grade, otherwise my parents are going to get really mad at me. So you got all that as well. So you can think about it in that kind of a framework, but then the benefits, I think, are huge. So basically, either you launch, which you'll likely have a low probability of winning, right? Let's put that out there. But you will learn a lot. You will definitely learn a lot. And I think if you try to just start something and get a couple of paying customers, whatever the idea is, right, you will probably 2 to 3x the value of the education you're getting here. And it will just set you apart. So I think there's a lot to win. You learn how to work as a team. And the other thing is you also get to network and connect with people. And so when you do that, and as you go on to your professional career and stuff, it'll actually help to get your LinkedIn set up and get some connections and see if others can kind of help you get where you want to go. So all right, I think that's about it. And I think I had a couple of slides, but I'm almost out of time, so I'll run through it relatively quick. You just kind of come up with some ideas on what you want to build, see which idea you want to pursue, and then you make a minimum viable product, something that is like super trivial. And I'll give you an example that Airbnb, anyone heard of Airbnb? Okay, come on, at least just one. I thought more people know about Airbnb. All right, so anyway, Airbnb started off doing ads on Craigslist, just putting postings and listings on there. So you can start super simple. You don't have to have like a lot of money and build like this big thing. And then you find product market fit, PMF. Are people excited about what you're building and selling them or not? And then you profit one way or the other. You gain knowledge for sure, and you may wind up making money too, right? Why not? All right, I think I will maybe save my last couple of slides for later, and just, we have 30 seconds if y'all have any questions. Or you can come over and we can hang out a little bit for coffee. All right. Well, thank you all for coming, and hope you found it interesting.